Hi, I'm Terry, one of the Consumer Technology Specialists for Mid-Continent Public Library. And today we are going to open Google Sheets and then we are going to cut and paste or copy and paste text, maybe numbers, and especially formulas so that we can see how you can use these new techniques to come up with the very best spreadsheet possible. Looking at our example spreadsheet for today, we can see that it is a walking plan and that in week 1 we have the different days of the week with a total, at least the label total in A11, and then in column B it has the minutes that this person has walked, and we can see this person isn't overly athletic. They started walking just 10 minutes a day, so that's sort of like, I don't know, 5 minutes up the hill and then 5 minutes back. And then by the 4th day, they were feeling pretty good about the 10 minutes and went on to do 15 minutes the next 3 days. After that, on Saturday, it looks like maybe they were just too busy, so they didn't get any walking in that day. I think we can assume that the plan is that every 3 or 4 days they're going to up the number of minutes that they walk by, say, 5 minutes, and then eventually get up to 45 minutes or an hour. But for right now, they've walked a total of 75 minutes for this first week. Now that we've looked at our example spreadsheet, let's talk a little bit about copy and what that means. Well, picture, if you will, a piece of paper that has maybe a letter or a memo or maybe even that walking plan spreadsheet all printed out on it, and you decide that you would like to have a copy of that sheet of paper. Well, what you want to do then is you would take that original and you'd go to the copier machine and you'd place it on the glass and press copy, and at the end of the process you would have an original sheet of paper with that original, say, walking plan, and then you would have a copy that looks exactly like the original. Well, in Sheets, when we use copy, we have a very similar kind of process that we will use. For our first example, let's say that now that we've completed week 1, we'd like to come over and to the right of week 1, add in the information to start week 2. And rather than type in all of that information a second time, we could simply copy and paste. So let's click on A3 where it has week 1. I'm just going to click and drag down over all of those days of the week and even total. And I even get kind of a solid blue line here and a light blue background showing that that is what I've selected. And then we're going to go up to the menu bar to edit. When I click edit, I'm going to go down to the second group and the second choice, copy, and click that. And then I get, it's a little kind of hard to see, but I get little dashed lines around the border of what we've selected previously. And what we've selected is now in the clipboard of the machine, which is just sort of a temporary holding place in memory. And then we'll go over to D3 and click. Now, when you copy and paste, you want to select just the first cell, the top left cell of where you want to paste, and then let Sheets fill in the rest for you. Well, now that we're in D3, let's go back up to the menu bar to edit, and then we'll go to that second section, and we're going to go to the third choice, which is right below copy and paste. Now we have all of those days of the week. All we need to do is change the 1 to a 2, and then as the week goes, we would type in the number of minutes to the right of each day. Now, while you may decide that you really like using the menu bar and the choices there, some people like to use right-click. So let's see how that would work. Well, we'll again select all of those choices, the days of the week, in week 1, including total. And this time I'm going to keep my mouse right on top of what I've selected and do a right click on my mouse. At that point, I can come up to this shortcut menu and the second choice is copy. Again, I can see the little dashed border, and that means that what I have copied has gone into the clipboard of the machine, the temporary memory. And then we want to paste it here in D3, so I might even select D3, and then keeping my mouse pointer right there, I'm going to right click and again get that shortcut menu and go to the third choice, which is paste, and click. And we again have our week 2 once I change that 1 to a 2. And we're all ready to add in the minutes as we continue the walking plan. While some people really like that menu bar and other people really like using a right click, there's still other people who are proponents of another way to copy and paste, and they like to use keyboard shortcuts. So to see where we could find those keyboard shortcuts, let's go up to the menu bar and go to Edit. And as we look at that second section, we can see that copy, as I go to the right, is Control C, and paste is Control V. So let's see what happens if we try those keyboard shortcuts. First of all, we're going to select all of the text in A like we've done before. And this time I'm going to go to the keyboard of my computer. I'm going to hold down the Control key, hold down the C, and let them both up at the same time. And we get those little dashed lines around the border. That looks right. Now we'll go over to D3, and this time using the keyboard shortcuts again, we'll hold down the Control, press the V, let them both up, and now we have a copy of week 1 in column D. So now let's talk a little bit about cut and move. They are used somewhat interchangeably, although you'll generally see the term cut within your software. So what is cut or move? Well, let's picture a newspaper where you have found an article that you really like and you'd like to share it with a friend. And so rather than carry the whole newspaper, you simply take your scissors and you cut out that article that you thought was so great, and you take it to the friend. Now that article is with the friend, it's no longer in its original location. In fact, the original location is now kind of a gaping hole within that newspaper. Well, same thing here with the idea of move. Let's say that where you live now, whether it's too big, too small, too hot, too cold, whatever, you decide that you would like to move to another location. Well, you would pack up everything that you have now currently in this current location, and you would move it to the new location. And so the new location would get all of the boxes and all of the stuff that you've decided you want to take with you, but your original location, the one where you are now, will basically have nothing except maybe some dust bunnies or something. So with move, again, you don't have anything now in your original location, and it has all been placed in another new location. Now that we've talked a little bit about cut and paste, let's look at this example where we started with week 1 in column A and the minutes in column B, and then we thought, well, let's see what happens if we put week 2 below that. Well, the more you look at that, you realize that week 3 would be even lower and week 4 would be even lower down in the spreadsheet, and you might find yourself doing a lot of scrolling by setting up the spreadsheet in this manner. So after giving it some thought, you think, I think I'm going to put week 2 to the right of week 1. I think that gives me a better look, and I could put several weeks across and have them all just visible on my screen at the same time. So let's select week 2. I'm just going to click and drag over those same entries of days of the week and even total at the bottom. And then let's go up to the menu bar where the second choice is Edit. And we'll go down to the second group where we have Cut. And we'll click on those scissors that cut. And again, we can't tell that much has happened, but we do have that dashed little lines that go around the border showing that something has happened, and in fact what we have cut has gone onto the clipboard. And then we'll click in D3 showing that's where we want to start the paste, and then we'll go back up to the menu bar to Edit, and go down to that second section, the third choice, paste. And now we have week 2 in column D, and there is nothing here below week 1. Now, just as before, while some people like to use the menu bar, a lot of people find that a right click is a faster, easier way to do some cutting. So let's try that as well. We'll again select week 2 and all the days of the week and total, and then keeping my mouse right on top of that blue background, I'm going to right click, and again we get a shortcut menu where the very first choice is cut. So I'll click cut. We get those little short dashed lines around the border of what we've cut and have put in the clipboard. Then we'll go to D3, and keeping my mouse pointer right there on D3, I'm going to right click and go to the third choice in that shortcut menu, which is paste. And now we've moved week 2 beside week 1, and again, nothing then is below week 1. Some people still really like to use keyboard shortcuts, so let's look at those and remind ourselves what they can be, and then let's see how a keyboard shortcuts would work. So let's go to Edit in the menu bar, where we can see that cut is Control X, and just as a reminder, paste is Control V. Now that we've reminded ourselves how that can work, let's select week 2. And this time I'm going to hold down my control key, press the X, let them both up at the same time. We get those dashed border lines around what we have cut. We'll click on D3 as the start for our paste, and then we'll again hold down the control key, the V key, let up, and we've moved week 2 beside week 1. Now here's one last way that you may decide that you would like to try to move cell contents from one location to another. And we can simply select our week 2 days of the week and even total yet again. We get that light blue border around what we've selected with the very light blue background. Now as I rest my mouse on top of the light blue border, my mouse pointer becomes a hand. And as I press my mouse button, my left mouse button down and hold it down, then that border becomes our dashed line that we're familiar with when we've done copy and cut. Well, all I need to do now is keep that left mouse button down, and I'm going to drag my mouse over to column D. And as I drag it, we can see that it has the dashed line now still, and I have a great outline of where everything is going to be located once I let up on my mouse button. So I'm going to let up on that mouse button, and now I have moved week 2 to column D. Now that we've looked at least 3 different ways where we could cut and paste or copy and paste, let's look at what happens when you cut or copy formulas, and depending on where you paste, what happens with that process. We'll also look at an advanced paste feature that may really help you save some time and effort. Let's look at what happens when we copy a formula. And I know that I have a formula here in B11, so let's select that. And just to be sure that I'm correct, let's go up to the formula bar, and it shows us that we do indeed have a formula where we are adding all of the cell contents starting at B4 and ending at B10. And that's how we got our 75 minutes. Well, I'd like to copy this formula rather than rewrite it and place it then in column E, so I have a total all ready for week 2 when we finish it. Well, let's go to Edit in the menu bar and copy, and then we'll go over to E11, knowing that that formula is right now in the clipboard. So we'll go to E11, and then we'll go to Edit, and we will paste, and look at that, we have an answer of 0. Well, let's make sure that that 0 really represents the cells that we want it to. So let's go up to the formula bar, and yes, it's adding E4 through E10. That's great. Now let's do one more example, and I'm going to go back to our original formula and go to Edit and Copy, and this time I'm going to go to, say, F4, and we're going to Edit and Paste. Now here, oops, I get a reference. And when I rest my mouse on it, it even says there's an error, the reference doesn't exist. Now that isn't maybe overly helpful, but we can step back just a little bit to realize that our original formula was adding 7 days, an entire week of walking information, whereas now that I've clicked here, I only have 3 cells above it. There aren't enough cells to add all of the range of cells that are in that particular formula. So you always have to be careful when you copy a formula that you don't get some sort of an error message that you need to think about. Sometimes they even look pretty good, and yet they're not really quite accurate. So always double check when you copy that formula and paste it in that it's going to be correct, so that your entire spreadsheet then stays correct as well. Now that we've looked at copy and paste and several examples, let's also look at cut and paste and compare the two. Well, again, we have our original formula here in B11, but this time I want to go to Edit and Cut, the scissors. And I'm going to come over here to E11 and go back up to Edit and Paste. Well, I definitely don't have the formula in B11 anymore, and it's moved over here to E11 where, what? It says 75. Well, there's nothing to add in column E, and yet it says 75. Let's look at the formula bar. When you look at the formula bar, oh, well, there's the answer. It is still adding column B, B4 through B10. It didn't adjust when we moved it over to column E. And while this might be okay, we would definitely want to label that 75 in some way so that anyone looking at our spreadsheet knows that this is an answer to adding column B, not column E, even though that's kind of how it looks. Well, let's do another example. Let's again cut. So we'll go to Edit and Cut, and then let's go to our short example here in, say, G3, and we'll paste it in. So again, Edit and Paste, and it still says 75. And when we go to the formula bar, it is still referring to B4 through B10 that are going to be added. So while that still may be the placement that you want to use for that total of column B, you definitely need to label it in some way, probably below or to the left, and say that this is the answer to week 1, and so that people aren't confused about what they are seeing. While pre-planning a spreadsheet and how you're going to lay it out is always a good thing to do, sometimes you just don't have the time to do that, or maybe you just have the confidence not to pre-plan, and that's fine. Lots of times that works out great, but occasionally you'll start a spreadsheet like we have here, and then you realize the more you work with it that maybe you should have made the row headings column headings instead. Well, if you catch that soon enough, you can use a really neat feature that is in Paste Special. So let's look at this for a second. Let's say that we've started this spreadsheet and we looked at the days of the week and they're aligned vertically, and then we decide that, maybe it would be better that instead of having these row headings, we have them as column headings instead, so they'll run horizontally across one row. To do that and not have to retype everything, we would simply click and drag and select those days of the week, for example, and then go up to Edit, and we could copy, and then click, say, in row 15, and then go back up to Edit and go past paste to paste special, and there are a lot of different paste special options, and we may come back to those in the future, but for right now we're going to look at this very last one, paste transposed. Click it, and we have now pasted those days of the week across the row and saved ourselves a lot of time and a lot of retyping. For more information on Google Sheets, be sure to look for our online resources at mymcpl.org/online learning. There you'll find such great resources as Universal Class, lynda.com, Who Knew It, and Learning Express Library. Be sure to join us each week for a variety of tech topics. Join us on Facebook at MCPL 360 on Tuesday at 2 or Wednesday and Friday at 1. If you happen to miss our Facebook premiere or you just simply prefer YouTube, be sure to look for our MCPL MO channel, which has our MCPL Consumer Technology Resources playlist.